public meeting, which is a presentation of the draft comprehensive land use plan for the city of Waukegan. Our consulting team, led by Ratio Architects, will provide an overview for you of this plan. Let me now introduce Leslie Roth of Ratio Architects.
Thank you so much, Noelle. We're really excited to be with you here today to present the draft Waukegan land use plan, the comprehensive plan. I'm joined by our consultant team, Edgewater Resources, AES, DeWalt Hamilton, and SB Friedman, who will be presenting each of their respective portions of the comprehensive plan. Today, we're here to present to you the overarching topics and themes and strategies that are present in the comprehensive plan that cover a wide variety of topics that we'll go into later in this presentation. After this workshop, we'll collect comments, incorporate those comments into the final comprehensive plan, and share those documents out with the public during the adoption process. Right now, we're in the fourth phase of the comprehensive planning process out of 5. This will be our last public meeting for outside of the adoption process for the comprehensive plan. And after working almost 2 years on this plan, we've reached this draft that we'll present to you today. A really important part of the comprehensive planning process is public engagement. As you can see on this slide, our planning process has been very comprehensive, starting in 2018 when we had the kickoff. We've had several pop-up workshops, public workshops, and have made several presentations to a steering committee, which has helped us draft the strategies, goals, and objectives for the plan. Now in 2020, we're coming to the end of the process with this public workshop and finally adoption. The table of contents there has 7 chapters, including implementation. Each one of the chapters discusses a unique element in the comprehensive plan that the city of Waukegan can then use to implement the plan and direct development and policies. Key characteristics of this plan include a healthy economy, which we'll talk about in the prosperity chapter, a diverse and equitable community, celebrating Waukegan's culture, history, and future, environmental conservation, which has been very important throughout the course of this plan, including environmental and social justice issues, community mobility and alternative transportation. Waukegan is a very connected city, very built out, and has a wonderful transportation system that DeWalt Hamilton will talk about in the transportation chapter. And finally, stronger governance, through increased organizational capacity. This comprehensive plan could not be successful without you, the stakeholders, in partnership with the city and other civic and public organizations to make this plan come to fruition. In the first phase of this project, community members came together to create a vision statement for the project. I'd like to read it out loud because I feel like this is the most important part of the plan and guided all of the goal and strategy creation. Waukegan is a diverse and equitable community with opportunities for all and an unwavering pride of place, represented in multi-generational legacy investments made by the city's residents. We value strong partnerships between the city and other organizations to improve Waukegan residents' quality of life by the effective provision of high-quality services. The city's unique and accessible location, arts and culture, variety of attainable housing, vibrant business environment, healthy neighborhoods, convenient transit access, and a beautiful and activated lakefront define the city's authentic identity and future success.
Thank you, Leslie. This is Ranadeep Bose. I'm from SB Friedman Development Advisors, and I am going to talk about the economic development component of this comprehensive plan. So as part of this work, we actually analyze the residential and commercial land uses. And what we are really putting together here and presenting to you is our broad strategies or goals which affect economic development for the future. So it's really looking out into the future of Waukegan. Where are the areas that you see opportunities for new development that can actually enhance the economic prosperity of the community. So we first, of course, see downtown. That's the heart of your community. We see that as the goal of making that a vibrant mixed-use district. You already have major anchors in there. And what we are looking at as an opportunity is really residential and commercial development. So ground floor commercial and residential above, creating a mixed income, mixed use, vibrant downtown, which is very, very attractive for the community and people from outside Waukegan itself. The downtown creates the opportunity to link to Waukegan Harbor and the lakefront. So we are at a unique position of actually being a lakefront location, and there's an opportunity to convert what was primarily an industrial lakefront into a vibrant, modern residential and tourism destination. So that's one other key strategy. And then we have significant what we're calling gateway corridors. You have Green Bay Road, the north-south connector, and 3 major east-west thoroughfares, which bring you into Waukegan from the north and south, and then from the west into the lakefront and to the downtown. And that's Grand Avenue, Washington Street, and Belvedere Road. So we want to talk about a few strategies around those key gateway corridors. And then this entire southwest Waukegan area, and I think Leslie mentioned this, that Waukegan is built out, and there's a lot of infill opportunities in some of these other zones, but southwest Waukegan is an area where there's new and vacant greenfield sites, which can actually be developed and part of the growth story of the city of Waukegan. Go to the next slide, please, Leslie. And so when we're talking about downtown, I mentioned residential development. We are looking at really bringing in market rate residential development in addition to some of the affordable housing that has already gone in. And the idea and the goal being is to increase the number of residents living in the entire downtown area, lakefront, downtown. You know, we wanted a target of 1,000+ residents, which really to activate this area, and also to support the commercial development, the bars, restaurants, eventually when we get back away from the COVID situation, to really have a thriving downtown in there. And we bring this point on connectivity in there because downtown, the downtown ultimately, it connects already to the west, and the 3 major corridors connect to downtown, but also we want to go all the way to the lakefront. So that transition downtown is sort of the glue which holds the rest of the community and the lakefront together. And so we want that connectivity to really work through and work out. And I'm sure we'll hear from Bill and his team on that. The next slide here. And so the lakefront and the Waukegan Harbor area, this is where we are looking at another zone where it's catalytic redevelopment sites. So they're not yet vacant greenfield because they were formerly industrial uses, but they're being transitioned into developable sites as the city is gone through a long process with related to cleanup, and it's still in the process of undergoing doing that. But we have public uses, we have a municipal beach, and we are opening up the water to the residents of Waukegan, which we think is a transformational opportunity for the community. So this could be a year-round retail and entertainment destination. It could be a waterfront residential community, and then really linking the lakefront to the downtown and the rest of the community. That's really what we are hoping for with the strategies on this. Next slide here. And this is again the gateway corridors I talked about, the east-west and the Green Bay, which is the north-south. The idea here is each of these corridors actually have a unique brand and location. Like Green Bay is your road, at least has the auto cluster. The Washington Street, which is this image is related to Washington Street, and it's got this ethnic retail component, and that's really what you want to celebrate. So creating this unique brand is what is also very critical, and being able to attract people from all over the region. But we also want to address the changing retail world. We know that the US in general and nationally, we tend to be over retailed. And so the idea of concentrating to retail at critical nodes is what is going to be a big part of the story for these corridors. And then to some extent in the areas where the retail is not as successful, we should look at the ability to change the existing use to other uses. For example, the Cristo Rey, the education use, which is a fantastic, it's like an old retail big box at Kmart, I believe, which was converted to an education use. A perfect example where the city really worked to get that mixed use project come through. So things like that, where in areas where retail is no longer successful, you look at compelling transitions, but also concentrating retail at the most successful corners and the nodes along the street. Next slide. Here. And then this is the Southwest Waukegan. This was the location. Waukegan was selected as one of the cities in Illinois to have a new casino. And what we are really suggesting, and I think the city has embraced this, that it's not just a casino, which is over here. We should be looking at it as a destination, an entertainment destination, and a complex. So it's not completely inside focused. It's really like a mixed use environment, an entertainment complex that is attractive and is open, and there are adjacent uses which are also attractive. That's sort of where the casino industry has gone. It's not just about the slot machines in there. It's really about the adjacent uses and opening up to the public. So that's, I think, a key component that could occur in the proposed casino site. But then there are other vacant sites there are around there, which could be capitalized, and we could become, add more retail in this location where there are sites for that. This is your new sort of mixed use center for Fountain Square. And then there is opportunities for further development of both industrial uses, commercial uses, and then as you go further west, a little more residential uses in here. And so then just bringing all that together, we've talked about the 4 high impact areas of the city: downtown, lakefront, this sort of gateway corridors, and then the southwest portion. And we've talked about these as the core areas of where the city should invest their resources for the new development component of these. These are your redevelopment areas for the future of Waukegan. Then I'll hand it back to the next section. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranadeep. Chapter 3 is about community, and this is primarily focused on the land uses in the city of Waukegan. The approach that we took is a place-based approach. So that means we really wanted to give the city flexibility of the kind of development that could be created in each area of the city, with 3 main ideas in mind: resilience, inclusive growth, and prioritized development. These were also mirrored in the CMAP, which is the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, their regional blueprint for the northeastern Illinois, and mirroring the strategies and priorities that this organization has to create a cohesive and functioning region. The place-based approach is a little bit different than traditional land use planning. What we did is we took a look at the number of land use categories that are currently available in the city of Waukegan. In this diagram that you're looking at, those are going across the top of the diagram, starting with single-family detached residential. We recategorized a number of these land uses into a much more simple, refined, and flexible land use framework called place types, which you see on the left side of this diagram, beginning with core neighborhood. The place-based approach actually looks at characteristics of each one of the areas as opposed to a parcel by parcel analysis of the land use in the city of Waukegan. The diagram that you see on the right-hand side of the screen is the revised, the future land use plan for the city. And as you can see, quite a bit of the land in the city of Waukegan are different types of residential. However, there are clusters of commercial areas and industrial areas. Commercial is identified in red and industrial areas are identified in purple. Each one of the place types may have a number of different land uses in them. The idea is that we wanted to create places in the city that had defining characteristics that function well together and were compatible. Now I'm going to take you through each one of the place types in a little bit more detail. The core neighborhood place type actually makes up most of the land use in the city of Waukegan. The goals for these areas included a multimodal environment that was safe, protected, and attractive for pedestrian and bicycle traffic. These are generally walkable neighborhoods. They generally have connected sidewalk systems and are generally pretty dense. These are some of the older neighborhoods in the city of Waukegan, and they have a whole variety of amenities, including schools and parks. The primary land uses in this category include a variety of residential, including attached and detached single-family homes. There are supporting land uses, as I mentioned, and as Ranadeep talked about in the economic development strategy for the city, that include restaurants, retail, commercial, some commercial or personal services, and parks and open space. The edge neighborhoods are generally on the west side of the city, and while they do have this similar primary and supporting land uses, the goals for these areas are a little bit different. The lots are generally bigger than the core neighborhoods. However, the comprehensive plan recommends that these neighborhoods continue to be full service, that they increase residents' quality of life, and that they have some of the same attributes of core neighborhoods, including connected sidewalk systems, that there are gathering spaces, that there are parks, and that there are other amenities, including restaurant and retail. The commercial areas of the city are generally located along the 4 major corridors coming into Waukegan. Ranadeep mentioned in his discussion several improvements that the comprehensive plan recommends, including a robust goals for an economic development strategy that increase commercial activity along these corridors. Some of the primary land uses are similar to residential areas, although they may be at a little bit different scale. Those include restaurant, retail, commercial, commercial and personal services, as well as arts and entertainment. Downtown Waukegan, as you know, has a very robust arts and culture scene that is supported by many organizations all across the city. So including that in the commercial place type supports diversification of that land use throughout the neighborhoods in the city. We also wanted to look at the road network, ensuring that it was safe, that it was multimodal, that it had public transportation, and that pedestrians and bikes were comfortable and connected along the roads. The next place type that we've talked a lot about already is the lakefront. There's several different plans that have been created prior to the comprehensive plan for improvement of the lakefront, harbor, and beach area. We wanted to include these in the lakefront place type to create a cohesive vision for the entire lakefront area. We also wanted to include opportunity for continued development along the lakefront where feasible. That may include multifamily residential. We wanted there to be some amenities that connect to downtown, including retail and commercial businesses. Parks and open space, of course, are along the lakeshore. It's one of the city's best amenities, as well as connectivity through transportation systems, metro, car, transit, pedestrian, and bike. The supporting land uses are generally residential, multifamily, and single family attached. These are prevalent particularly along the south side of the lakeshore in neighborhoods adjacent to the particular place type area of lakefront. The innovation hub includes several industrial or industrial areas of the city, or those that could potentially be converted from industrial. We wanted to increase the flexibility of these areas to encourage a variety of uses to locate in the industrial spaces within the city of Waukegan. That's why we call this the industrial hub. It's very different in form and function than other areas of the city. And there's generally about 4 or 5 of them. Some of the larger ones we've already talked about. And it also includes land on the lakefront that we wanted to plan for a healthy future. So some of the industrial developments include commercial or retail uses, but primarily the industrial hubs, as we envision them in the future, would have office, research, and light industrial. These uses are starting to move into these areas already. However, there is more opportunity for innovation and industry, including light manufacturing, in these areas. The parks and green space, particularly the ravine system and the lakefront in the city of Waukegan, also are really, really beautiful. They're prized. The park system is celebrated by many, many Waukegan residents and is very well loved and well used. We spent a lot of time looking at areas of the city that maybe didn't have the same distribution of parks as other areas of the city. And Todd from AES will go into detail with the Parks and Open Space Network in the city. However, we wanted to, again, plan for the future and make sure that all residents in the city of Waukegan were well served by parks and open space. We also wanted to really elevate the reputation, the accessibility and connectivity of parks, the ravines, and the lakefront to the residential neighborhoods. So the comprehensive plan strategies also address connectivity of these special areas. The Waukegan National Airport recently completed a master plan, and this is another incredible attribute of the city. The preferred concept is being evaluated now and implemented with stakeholders in the city of Waukegan. This area represents a lot of opportunity for continued growth and development using airport resources. This is a transportation and utilities asset, and the master plan for the airport also really specifically is sensitive to adjacent residential areas. To give Waukegan a sense of place as well as a defining identity, we looked at a series of gateways and wayfinding identification markers throughout the city. We focused primarily on the corridor, on the east-west corridors moving into the city, which are commercial corridors. However, a comprehensive community branding strategy was also part of the comprehensive plan. Signage and wayfinding also provides ease of access for visitors to Waukegan, for tourists, and also for those who walk or ride bikes or are finding their way to parks, trail systems, and the ravine system. It gives them an easy navigational device. We recommended in the comprehensive plan to create a uniform signage system. There are some signs in the city already. There are some gateway and wayfinding signage, particularly off the freeway system and along the lakefront. However, a comprehensive system is recommended to be planned and implemented throughout the entire city. Community facilities are another really very important aspect in the city of Waukegan. Throughout the course of this project, we talked to hundreds of stakeholders who, including nonprofit organizations that represent a variety of service populations, the school district, and the library, which is really at the heart of many of the city's programming and brings together a lot of the organizations that are present in the city. We also talked to religious and faith-based institutions, which serve as the backbone of Waukegan, and there was a real prioritization for increasing health and wellness in the city. There's been some improvement to the healthcare systems in Waukegan, which is wonderful, particularly for our aging population as Waukegan has. And as you can see by this map, that the community facilities are pretty well distributed throughout the city. We recommend, again, in coordination with Parks and Open Space and the Transportation Network, to ensure that accessibility and connectivity of these facilities is implemented through the comprehensive plan. Now I'll move into transportation.
Hi guys, my name is Justin Opitz. I'm with Gaywold Hamilton, and you're with my colleague Bill Grieve as well. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the transportation and mobility section of the comprehensive plan. I just kind of want to start off with the fact that everyone by now knows that Waukegan has a very established comprehensive transportation network. Both Randadeep and Leslie hinted on that. You have a bunch of arterial roadways: Washington Street, Sunset Avenue, Gulf Road, the AMSTUDs, close to I-94. A very well built out city. You have 12 PACE bus routes, which I think is probably one of the most out of any suburb. And then also the metro line that runs along the east side of the city, north and south along the lake. And really what we're talking about in this comprehensive plan, since you have such an established network that works so well already, is really bringing the network into the future and just preparing for the next 20 years and kind of some of these future trends that are coming along. So in recent years, transportation has really started to shift more towards a bike and pedestrian focused network. And with these right here on the slide, we have some goals, and I'll talk a little bit about the strategies that are associated with these goals in the plan. So the first one is increased pedestrian and bicycle network connectivity. And what we're talking about here is really providing everyone with bicycle and pedestrian connectivity to parks, the lakefront, making sure that everyone can get around easily to the airport, commercial spaces, civic centers. And the map to your right displays really the existing, proposed, and future bike trails, bike lanes, and shared bike markings. It incorporates both the Lake County Department of Transportation 2040 future plan, and then also the Northern Lakeshore Trail Connectivity Plan, which I know is currently underway. And the way you're gonna basically implement increased connectivity is to pursue some funding sources, which are outlined in the plan, such as the Illinois Trails Grant Program or Surface Transportation Block programs, which are implemented by the federal government, and then engaging with businesses to build partnerships over time and educating them on the economic benefits of bicycle trails and bicycle lanes running by their businesses, and then also coordinating the construction of bicycle facilities such as trails with infrastructure improvements. The next goal would be increasing awareness about the benefits of non-motorized transportation. And these benefits can range from a healthier population to increased mobility for all residents, more accessibility for all residents, especially residents who don't own cars, and reduce congestion along the roadways. And some of the strategies associated with that are working with really the nonprofits and local bike groups such as Ride Illinois to spread the awareness about those benefits, and then placing flyers around, and also creating a non-motorized transportation map on the city's website. The next goal is enhanced access to transit and improve transit efficiency. And enhanced access to transit focuses on sidewalk repairs and trail repairs and new construction of trails that really link bus stop and transit routes so that people can move between different modes of travel much easier and much more efficiently. And then when we're talking about improving transit efficiency, that's really working with outside agencies such as the Illinois Department of Transportation and Lake County Department of Transportation to implement what's called transit signal priority. And what that means is that the buses actually wirelessly communicate with transportation traffic signals in order for them to get priority and more green time, which increases the efficiency of the bus system and makes it more pleasant to ride and gets you to where you need to go quicker. And then also another thing is working on signal coordination and timing projects. And that's just in a nutshell, making transit traffic signals more efficient, which saves money, allows people to use less gas, and lets the city spend less money on accidents and stuff like that. And the last goal here is to increase awareness and ridership for paratransit and on-demand transit services, such as Dial-A-Ride or DAR services. And Waukegan already has really great coverage with these services. And what we're talking about here is really working with PACE and other DAR providers to place their pamphlets and paratransit guidelines in facilities such as City Hall and the library. So when people visit the library, they have readily accessible materials that tell them exactly what they need to do to use these services. And then potentially partnering with social service organizations for further enhancement of the mobility options for all residents. You go to the next slide, please. So this slide has a map of the street network of Waukegan, and there's 4 of the major east-west corridors on the left side of your screen. And Ron Deep was kind of talking about these earlier, and it hints back to his section of these are the major corridors that kind of lead you into downtown. And really, in the 2003 Lakefront Master Plan, one of the main goals of that plan was obviously the revitalization of downtown on the lakefront, but also it was to create boulevard-style roadways that kind of pulled you into downtown as you're traveling from west to east or east to west in the community. And what we're talking about here is implementing road diets on all 4 of those corridors. And what a road diet is essentially right now those roadways are 4-lane corridors. So they have 2 lanes in each direction. And what a road diet would do would reduce that to a 3-lane roadway section. So you would remove one of the through lanes in each direction. And what you end up with is 1 through lane in each direction and a shared center turn lane. And what this gives you is excess width from removing one of the lanes. And you can really use that for bike lanes, wider sidewalks that would then be considered shared use paths. So bikes could ride on them. You could also implement wider parkway, which would create more separation between pedestrian and vehicles. And then in that parkway, you can put some streetscaping stuff like trees, benches, just make the experience more inviting for pedestrians and bicyclists. And then after the road diets, we have the parking strategy, should include shared parking options. And what this means high level is that parking lots and parking requirements for businesses often are not shared. So into the future, let's say you have a grocery store and a coffee shop, which are using the same parking lot. Those would then share parking together because they have different peak periods. Like the grocery store, most people are going in the afternoon. The coffee shop, most people are going in the morning. So parking requirements would then be reduced for both those businesses, and especially in the downtown area, this really helps reduce the burden of providing parking for developers, which could catalyze development. And then lastly, we have transit opportunities. And this is just increasing the opportunities or increasing transit ridership along those road diet corridors. And all that regained space that you get from removing a lane, you can use for more transit-friendly infrastructure. And then the city can also advocate for some more transit signal priority as ridership increases due to those transit-friendly infrastructure improvements. That's all I have. Thank you.
Hi, Todd Palachik with Applied Ecological Services. My role was to inventory the parks and open space and contribute to the team and make sure this was all in concert to all the other themes. And I think it's really important too, as Waukegan can celebrate its successes, to think back and look at this, how important open space is right now amidst the backdrop of COVID. More and more places are sold out of fishing tackle and bicycles in the last several months. And more people are going to the beach and wanting to be by water and get out away and visit these open spaces. So I'm going to talk about a few of the overriding themes, starting with increasing quantity of parks and the vacant land. And then I'll drill in a little bit. Leslie covered some of this previously, but essentially when you think about natural areas and open space in Waukegan, there's a few sort of overriding themes: the lake, the harbor and lakefront, if you will, the ravines. And one of the key pieces was for us to think about this as a whole. And Waukegan has quite a number of smaller parks. So how to consider the interconnectedness between those parks to get to the waterfront was paramount in our view. And that is, we not only inventoried what was existing, but we sort of, we took on the idea of, on vacant parcels, if you look to the image to the right, you can see those are highlighted in pink, those large vacant parcels. The hashed part that's in yellow, we set up a service area for, and paired that with the ratio of population to see what parks could serve which communities. And then the intent is really to think about parks from the standpoint of doing double duty in terms of stormwater, being a natural amenity and a place for people to gather and get outside, but then also to think about interconnectedness. And the criteria we really thought about was position within the landscape, the ratio that they served of population, so the size, stormwater, vegetation, and then other unique features. And that's why ravines tended to rise to the top. So one of the key themes was City of Waukegan continuing to enhance and focus on the ravines, which are a unique feature. Increasing community resiliency. If you think about it, Ranadeep mentioned this, something like the proposed casino site. If the casino can consider how to leverage other areas outside of the building proper, and think about leveraging parks and enhancements for the overall experience, this can pay dividends in the future, not just financially, but also in terms of quality of life and environmentally. And our focus really was, in thinking about Belvedere Road, and then the focus on smaller neighborhood parks was really to create an east-west connection and corridor for those communities that are a little bit further west. So the team really strived to put this all in concert and not think about natural areas as separate from transportation and economics. And I think Leslie mentioned some of the the edge communities. Go ahead, next slide. So of course the lakefront has a tremendous draw, and Waukegan is to be commended in celebrating the beaches and dunes. Key focus has been on the port, the harbor, and the marina, but there's so much more, and there are ways to leverage and revitalize not only those lakefront areas, but through the interconnectedness of some of those communities further to the west. And really the emphasis is on stormwater and natural areas enhancement, but also recreation and leisure. So accessibility, trails. Justin talked a little bit about bicycle connections, was really critical in our coloring of how to think about lakefront and economic development and everything rolled up. And I guess last, I could just mention that as Waukegan looks forward in thinking about implementation, there's a lot of, it's highly eligible for Great Lakes Restoration Initiative funding, green infrastructure grant opportunities, and quite a few economic opportunities in terms of grants that can be leveraged for the community to enhance going forward. Thank you.
Chapter 6 is governance, and one of the key points of this chapter is to build organizational capacity within the city of Waukegan. It's also to establish accountability and ownership for the plan and the strategies and goals that the team has mentioned are included in the plan. This was a big effort on the part of Waukegan residents and stakeholders, city departments, and many other organizations that contributed to the creation of the goals and strategies. So the governance chapter really gives direction on how to make sure that the goals and strategies are implemented within the plan. Some of the recommendations include creating a database of partner organizations, stakeholders, individuals that want to stay involved, that really feel invested in the city of Waukegan. We mentioned legacy investments. This is building social capital within the city to make sure that the relationships are cultivated, have longevity, and that the plans and time and effort in this comprehensive plan can in the future be implemented. The second idea for accountability and ownership of the plan are to create regularly scheduled meetings. There was a lot of momentum built around this plan. We want to keep that going through implementation. This is when the heavy lift really starts to happen. So creating an action plan with those resources, as many of my colleagues mentioned, there are lots of funding resources out there that could potentially spur some of the accomplishment of the goals identified in the plan, to really begin getting on top of that and understanding what the next steps are for each one of the strategies. And lastly, coordinating with existing organizations, their master plans, their goals, and making sure that there's consistency and that there's not duplication of resources or developing those human capital within the city, so that everyone is pulling in the same direction to implement the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for that terrific presentation. We appreciate the team's work on this project. And thank you, members of the public, for joining us for this overview presentation for our draft comprehensive land use plan. The plan document is currently available on the Planning Department's page of the City of Waukegan website, and the video of this presentation will remain available on the city's YouTube channel. We will be accepting your comments and questions via mail to Planning Department, 100 North Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue, Waukegan, Illinois, 60085. That's the City Hall address, addressed to the Planning Department, or by email to planning@waukeganil.gov. That's planning@waukeganil.gov. Comments received prior to 4 p.m. on Thursday, August 13th will be shared with the Planning and Zoning Commission as part of the public record for their meeting. Again, thank you to the planning team for your work and for your presentation, and thank you again for joining us. Good night.